Welcome to Immigration Review, your weekly source for immigration case law updates and insights. I'm your host, Kevin A. Gregg, a partner at the immigration, medical malpractice, and business litigation law firm Kurzban, Tetzeli, and Pratt, back again to review the week's precedential immigration cases, rummaging through the decisions so you don't have to. This podcast is sponsored by Serenade e-Immigration. If your caseload is growing, you've probably felt this. At some point, more cases start to mean more chaos or more hiring. But it doesn't have to work that way. There's a really good guide on immigration case management that shows how better systems and workflows can actually increase your capacity without just adding more people. It covers everything from data consistency to client communication. And it's totally free for Immigration Review podcast listeners. Get this and tons of other free resources at get.eimmigration.com/IRP or click on the special link in the show notes. This podcast is also sponsored by Gonzalez & Gonzalez Immigration Bonds. Immigration attorneys. Once you've secured a bond, let Gonzalez & Gonzalez take it from there. In business and family-owned for 75 years, Gonzalez & Gonzalez helps other families post immigration bonds quickly, easily, and with full support every step of the way. Sure, you can post directly with DHS, but that means no guidance, no help when something goes wrong, and a 4 to 6 month wait for a refund. With Gonzalez & Gonzalez, families get hands-on help throughout the entire process and typically get refunds within 1 to 2 weeks of receiving the I-391 notice. Tired of being the point of contact for every bond question? Let Gonzalez & Gonzalez take those calls. They'll handle the paperwork, the system issues, and the family's concerns, so you can focus on what really matters, winning the case and helping your clients stay in the country. You can reach Gonzalez & Gonzalez at 833-409-9200. Their fee? Just 2% plus $40, and for bonds of $10,000 or more, they can defer the fee and deduct it from the refund. Financing options? They've got those too. Give Gonzalez & Gonzalez a call, check them out at immigrationbond.com, or click on their special link in the show notes. And as always, this show does not constitute legal advice and is intended to keep you up to date and enable you, my dear colleagues, to excel in court. So, without further ado, let's start the review. In this special episode, I interview my good friend and fellow San Diego immigration attorney, Andrew Nietor. Andrew's a great guy. He's one of the smartest people I know, and he's had some precedential wins on this very podcast. He's a passionate public servant and walks the walk, having dedicated countless hours to pro and low bono service over the decades. He's an awesome removal defense attorney and litigator, and he's done it all while running his own law firm for 22 years. He's been heavily involved in AILA for a very long time, and is running for AILA National Secretary this month. He's got my vote, and I'm happy to provide him this opportunity to talk a bit more about himself. I personally think that the world needs more Andrew Nietors. Decide for yourself after listening to this June 3rd, 2026 interview. And I'll see you all in San Diego in 2 weeks. Andrew Nietor, welcome to the Immigration Review podcast.
Thanks, Kevin. Great to be with you.
So before I started recording, as I often do, I asked you how to pronounce your last name. It's spelled Nietor. Not a very difficult name compared to the names I have to do on the podcast on a weekly basis, but still, I'm glad I asked. So now I know it's pronounced Nietor. My last name is pronounced Gregg. No surprise to anyone. But you were then starting to talk about how your name is actually made up. My name is made up as well. My grandparents, my grandpa and my grandpa's brother just decided to do it in the 1950s. In my opinion, to sound less Jewish, they'll never admit to that. My grandpa would have you believe that there was another dentist in the Detroit area with his last name and first name affiliated with the Jewish mafia. And he did not want to be associated with that. I think that's a lie. I think they didn't want to sound Jewish. Either way, I'm Greg, not the Scottish clan. You were saying that you might have a similar story, hopefully involving the Jewish mafia. Please, what do you got, Nietor?
Well, I don't know if this would scandalize you, Kevin, but Nietor isn't even technically my legal last name.
It does scandalize me, yes.
Yeah, if you look at my birth certificate, it's actually Nieto apostrophe R, just to make it more confusing. And so my father, he immigrated from Colombia, and so his last name is Nieto, I'm sure you've heard Nieto, Nieto Rojas. But when I was born, he basically wanted my name to reflect the two sides of his family. So he decided, I guess people back in the 50s and 60s didn't think it was a big deal to mess with last names. Pre-real ID, I guess. So he decided that he would put Nieto apostrophe R. And that's the name that I grew up with. And it was a big pain in the neck because I also grew up in the age of, you probably remember this, the Scantron forms in school.
Yes,
you have to fill in the little bubbles.
Yes.
There is no little bubble for apostrophe.
Right.
So when I was in school, I either had to leave a space or not put the apostrophe in. So it always caused a lot of grief. So when I got to that point in my life where I felt like I had some agency over myself, I just decided I'm not going to use the apostrophe anymore. So now it's Nietor.
So what you're saying is that you come from strife, you've gone through hardship, and you've come out on the other side. That's what you're saying.
Exactly. Just one version of the Jewish mafia, I guess, the Colombian mafia.
Slightly more serious mafia. Welcome to the Immigration Review Podcast, Andrew. I'm happy to have you. We're both San Diego removal defense and more immigration attorneys. You've been an established immigration attorney in San Diego much longer than me. When I was starting out and when I returned to San Diego, you're one of the first people I reached out to. So we're friends. I respect the heck out of you, and I'm happy to have you on the show.
Thanks, Kevin. Right back at you.
I appreciate that. So I'm happy you're on the show. We would have definitely done this in the future, but we're doing this right now because you're running for a position with AILA National, and I am honored to give you this platform to talk about yourself and talk about your candidacy. So I guess to start off, what are you running for with AILA National?
I'm running for the position of secretary with AILA National.
And when does voting start?
Voting starts on June 25th, and it runs for 21 days.
I'm very happy about that because in the past, it's been a pet peeve of mine that voting starts before the national conference. And then all the people like you are at the national conference trying to solicit votes. But a lot of people have already voted because if they're like me, they vote the second they get that AILA National email. So happy AILA National changed their policy. Did you have anything to do with that?
I've often said that they needed to change the election procedure. I was more concerned about how long it used to be. I mean, the election used to go on for weeks and months, and it was just a grueling process for anybody that was running for a position. I'm on the board of governors now, and so I've run for national offices before, and every time it's just very long, time-consuming, expensive. So I'm glad that they shortens the period of the elections as well. But you're right; the overwhelming majority of people vote very early when that email first comes through.
What do you mean expensive? I mean, are you supported by an AILA National Political Action Committee?
No PACs supporting me.
Nietor, our choice, the Colombian and Irish American immigration lawyers super PAC.
It's just expensive in the sense that people feel like they need to buy all the swag and print flyers and pins and little mementos to hand out at the annual conference. Then they'll have regular candidate forums. You need to kind of redo your schedule to fit in all these Zoom meetings. So it could be really grueling on our schedules. And so I think it was wise to kind of narrow that down.
Having just spoken negatively about the swag, what swag will you be providing at AILA National?
I'll certainly have buttons.
Thank God.
And then I was thinking of doing some of those can coolies.
Like a koozie?
Yeah, like the styrofoam koozies.
Yeah, oh yeah, okay, good. With your face on it.
I'll put something on there. At least my name.
By the way, so we're both involved in the AILA San Diego sub chapter, and they created an awesome shirt for National. You see that? There's that seal surfing on a surfboard with a wave behind it, but the wave is a metaphor for immigration chaos. It's good stuff. Anything with a seal, I'm here for it.
I agree. I'm actually on the annual conference planning committee. So we've been working on that for quite some time.
That was not intended. I did not intend to give you props on the shirt, but apparently props are due. Good job on the shirt. It's great.
Well,
It's great.
I will pass that on to the actual artists.
Oh, that's awesome. I want the hoodie. So as I said, Andrew, I've respected you for a long time. Even when I was an attorney advisor with the San Diego Immigration Court, there were a few attorneys who were discussed by the immigration judges and as ethical and good, and their briefs come in, look at their briefs, that kind of stuff, and you are among them, always have been, and I think that's probably the case in a lot of contexts, because you began your career as a federal public defender, right?
That's right. Right out of law school, my first job when I moved to San Diego was with Federal Defenders of San Diego, and I was with them for a little over 3 years.
It's a very important job, and at least in San Diego, they're kind of at the forefront of habeas litigation right now as well, because that office has decided with their scarce resources that they are going to take a lot of the habeas cases, or maybe the federal judges decided for them. So it's a very important office. How do you think that role affected you and prepared you to be the immigration attorney that you are today?
It was really critical in my formation as a litigator. And also in the interest of disclosure, I'm still on the board of directors for Federal Defenders of San Diego. So when I was with them, I was a trial attorney. But one of the things that they do at Federal Defenders is every attorney, they handle their own appeals as well. And as you know, in most public defender offices, whether it's local or federal, you pretty much get thrown into the fire pretty early on. And so within a couple of weeks, I was handling court appearances, in front of magistrate judges, district judges, writing my own briefs, doing my own sentencings, going to trial probably within 3 or 4 months. And so it's a very disciplined office, high volume, and they put a lot of emphasis on training and knowing the rules of evidence, of procedure. And so when I became an immigration attorney and started litigating in immigration courts, I was very comfortable with filing motions and making objections in court. Probably I did it more than typical, just because that was just part of my DNA. And so when I love doing trainings on those issues, like courtroom procedure and how to object and how to file motions. But I credit the training that I got at Federal Defenders for doing that, because I think that they're the ones that really taught me how to be an extremely zealous but ethical attorney, knowledgeable of the rules of evidence, how to file briefs, how to negotiate with the U.S. Attorney's Office. So I give them a lot of credit for the skills that I've been able to apply in immigration proceedings as well.
It's very important to have people like you in the immigration bar. Why did you decide to leave the federal public defenders? Well, more importantly, why did you decide to get into immigration? I mean, that's not a usual path. A lot of federal public defenders stay there for their career. They become magistrate judges and district court judges, or they go into private criminal defense. Why'd you come into immigration?
Well, that probably goes back to even before I went to law school. My undergraduate degree is actually in finance and in international relations, and I even worked for a bank for a few years. But I also did a lot of volunteer work on the side, mostly homeless population and youth advocacy things. And I realized that I just enjoyed doing the volunteer work that I was doing a lot more. And so I decided to essentially just take a year off and just do full-time volunteer, kind of like a Peace Corps thing. My sister actually did the Peace Corps. She kind of beat me to it. Yeah. And then I wound up going to Tijuana, Mexico, and working with the Salesians, called Proyecto Salesiano Tijuana, just 15 miles from where you and I are right now across the border. Interestingly, that name might not sound familiar, that organization, Salesiano Tijuana, but they currently run Desayunador Salesiano Padre Chava, which is a very well-known shelter in Tijuana focusing on migrants, deported migrants. And so I was with them back in the 90s, before law school, before moving to San Diego. So it's quite a coincidence that they're part of my world now, 25 years later. Maybe more providence than coincidence, if you believe in that. But then I went back to New York and got a job at Covenant House, which is a youth shelter. Worked in Manhattan and the South Bronx. And while I was there, they had a legal department, some office up on the second floor. I never really understood what went on up there, but they would regularly call me up to ask me to help translate. They were working a lot with homeless migrant minors. And so the two attorneys up there didn't speak Spanish, so they would ask me to pop up and help because I speak Spanish. And I just became fascinated with what they were doing, how they were providing such important services to our clients. I got to say, at the time, I had no real understanding of what services they were providing. So now I assume that they were probably filling out like guardianship petitions and SIGIS applications. But that really what gave me the bug to go to law school with the intention of going into immigration advocacy. And so I went to George Washington University in D.C., did an internship at AILA, a pretty well-known nonprofit in D.C., where I did my first asylum hearing in Baltimore Immigration Court. I still have that order granting asylum to my Sudanese asylee client hanging on my wall.
I was going to say, did you win? You did win.
We won. I say we. I mean, I had my supervisor with me. But when I was in law school, someone said, hey, why don't you try an internship at someplace else like the Public Defender Service? They said, I think you might like that because you seem to like the courtroom stuff. So I did one internship at the DC Public Defender Office. And I was just so impressed with the work they were doing there. The attorneys there, their zeal, their hard work, determination, compassion, it really impacted me. So when I graduated, I applied to Federal Defenders of San Diego since I knew that office kind of did a mix of federal criminal defense and immigration. But the immigration is really what led me to law school in the first place. So when I left that office to hang my own shingle around 2004, I started focusing more on the immigration. And here I am 25 years later, still in San Diego.
How did you find that, hanging your own shingle, just a couple of years out of the public defenders, of which part of your practice is still representing criminal defense through the
CJA panel.
The CJA panel, that's right. But you go out and you just hang your own shingle. That's always been very nerve-wracking to me. It's not something I have a desire to do. How does one decide to just go for it and do it?
It was nerve-wracking, and I have to give so much more credit to people that are doing it now because I think it's even harder to do now. But when I left Federal Defenders, I joined forces with three other attorneys. So the four of us left at the same time. We didn't form a partnership, but we decided to rent some shared space. So we were able to kind of cut the cost of the rent and share a copy machine and all that kind of stuff. And that made it, possible to do. The other thing that was very helpful for me and for colleagues is that when we left Federal Defenders, I immediately joined that CJA panel. So I continued to accept appointed work from the Federal District Court for criminal defense cases. And so that was very helpful because it was, feeding me cases. And so I didn't have to start from scratch. And so that was a bit of an advantage that people leaving Federal Defenders have, that they can immediately go on the panel. But I did have to start from scratch with the immigration, started by, joining AILA and getting to know people and kind of making myself known in the community as like one of those crimmigration guys. Yeah. And that's what I've continued to do over the decades.
22 years later, if I'm doing my math correctly, and you have
Right.
one of the oldest immigration firms now in San Diego and two associates, if I'm not mistaken,
I have
and
two
your
associates.
staff.
Yeah, I think you know them, Nerea and Julia. They both are my associate attorneys.
No, it's fantastic. You mentioned coincidence and maybe providence. I do know you. I think that you fall into the category of believing in providence.
You know me well.
How does your faith affect your immigration advocacy and your passion for this work?
Well, if I didn't mention it, the volunteer work that I did in Mexico with Proyecto Salesiano, it's a Catholic organization. So I was basically a Catholic lay volunteer, and so I grew up, Colombian father, Irish mother, very Catholic family on both sides. Went to parochial school growing up. A very Queens Catholic experience. Mm. And also, my parish was administered by Franciscans, which themselves have the spirit of giving to the community and love of animals, which I also share. Yeah. So my faith community growing up was very important in my formation and determining what was important to me. The importance of helping people in the community less fortunate. Recognizing the blessings that we have and the obligation we have to, help other people that need assistance, that don't have a voice, that are targeted and need somebody to advocate for them. I would say that my faith growing up was very much a part of my decision of the volunteer types of opportunities that I took on. The reason I went to law school and even today continues to be a big motivator, a source of inspiration and comfort for me.
I'm not a theologian. I'm not even Catholic. I do pay attention. I am interested. It seems to me that what you just described is in line with the views of the current Pope and the immediate predecessor Pope. But there seems to be, and in San Diego especially, the Catholic Church, leading an interfaith coalition, is on the front lines of advocating for immigration issues. The peaceful protests in front of the federal building every week, the observers in immigration court. I mean, what's happening, led by the Catholic Church in San Diego, is truly incredible. The bishop being an immigrant himself. But it seems there's a bit of a split in the Catholic Church, at least in America, most visually reflected by J.D. Vance, and views of the intersection of Catholicism and immigration. And it's very interesting to me how that happens, why that happens, and why you think it's happening, or whether you think I'm making a bigger deal of it than it is.
I don't know that you're making a bigger deal of it than it is. All I could say is that what I take from my faith, I think, is shared by the current pontiff. I think his predecessor, Pope Francis, as well. So I was very inspired by a lot of the work that Pope Francis did and what our current Pope is doing. Their constant reminder of the importance of human dignity, and even more importantly, in my line of work, in our line of work, the dignity of the immigrant and the need to welcome the stranger and not to take advantage of people. And so I feel like I am in alignment with the official current policies of the church. I know that many people share that. But it's also, a group of over 1 billion people. You're going to have some diversity within it. And frankly, whether you're talking about people within any specific denomination or church, I often find that people that don't have that view of the dignity of whatever group you're talking about, so whatever marginalized, oppressed group, it very often comes from a lack of exposure to that group. And so to me, the work that we do, one of the central components has to be our outreach, not just, among ourselves and within our community, but to the wider community, speaking to the media, giving real life examples of cases that we've had, clients that we've worked with. And that's what brings dignity to that community when they're real people, when they're your neighbors, when they're your employers, when they're your relatives, or at least when you hear other people talk about them in that context. And right now, there's just so much negativity coming out of this administration and from their supporters. One of my concerns is that a lot of people that don't agree with that can sometimes feel intimidated. They don't want to get in the fray because they know that that might invite attack, it might invite retaliation. But again, one of the benefits of having organizations like AILA and many other advocacy organizations is that it provides a forum, it provides some level of credibility, an opportunity to talk about our clients and talk about that community and constantly remind people of the dignity of every person.
Well, let's get into that. Your involvement with AILA and why you're running to be secretary. I now know through my what has become annual interviews with the presidents of AILA at the national conference that the secretary position, correct me if I'm wrong, is the entry position into one day becoming the president of AILA. It is a multi-year ladder that essentially ends with you being the president of AILA and you get in at the secretary level. Is that correct?
I think traditionally that's true.
But no longer the case, or?
Oh, I think it certainly could be the case, but I suppose I say it that way because I feel like I'm running for secretary for a very specific reason, in that the secretary position is traditionally also very much focused on things like membership engagement, creating a welcoming community. And those things very much specifically align with my own priorities and with what I've pushed our leadership to focus on in the years that I've been in a position to do that. So certainly this might lead to me eventually taking on other positions within the organization, perhaps even AILA president, if tradition holds. But I also very much want to be secretary because of what that position does and how important I think it is within our organization.
We'll get into specifics. What, as secretary, are you trying to enact? Through no fault of the volunteers currently in that position, what do you think is lacking, and what do you hope to achieve?
I think it's not that anything is lacking. I think that we need to establish what our focus is going to be. I think there's certainly been a change in the practice of immigration law. There's been a change in our interaction with the government, with this administration. Very specifically, I want to build up our membership engagement initiatives through things like personal outreach to members, getting feedback on what members need, to incorporate that into our sort of programmatic planning. Because right now, the practice of immigration law has become so challenging. The attacks of the administration are not just against immigrants. They're also against immigrant advocates. We are explicitly being targeted by this administration. And so the practice of immigration law has been that much more difficult. We need to have an organization that we can rely on, not only to obtain the services we need and the training and the listservs and the practice advisories, but just to have a particularly strong community where we are able to share information with each other, and also where we just feel a sense of community, because we're so constantly under attack that we need, for our own well-being, I think, we need to have a community where we feel like we're in this together, where we feel welcomed, and where we feel we're with other people that understand what we do and why we do it.
How do you help make that happen as secretary? What would you do?
Well, I'm a huge proponent of things like, listservs and interest groups and finding ways for members to interact and brainstorm with each other. That's really an essential part of being an AILA member, and where I'd like to see us strengthen our resources. So increasing the opportunities that members have to share information with each other. I love brainstorming with other attorneys, and that could be, either one-on-one or through the interest groups or the listservs that AILA has within the organization. And there really needs to be two parts to this. AILA members, we're 18,000 plus strong, and we're in every part of the immigration world. And so a lot of that information that all those attorneys have can be filtered into the organization. But then AILA as an organization needs to figure out how to use that information and collate it and then make it available and useful and practical to all of the members. So building up a way to not only bring information into the organization, like encourage people to participate more, make people feel like they're part of the organization, that they're welcomed, but also make it clear the ultimate benefit that every member has through being a member of AILA, that the organization is going to have this wealth of information. And with that information, we can then collate it and funnel it back to the members. We can also help identify patterns that a removal practitioner might not realize that what they're going through is very similar to what the employment practitioner is going through and other litigators. And AILA has the opportunity to collate all of that information and identify those patterns and make it useful back down to the members.
You definitely practice what you preach as well. You go to the AILA Message Center and search years in the past, and you see Andrew Nietor is one of the people just answering on his own dime all of these questions. By the way, if you don't use the AILA Message Center, I recommend you do. It's very good. It's not used as much anymore with the popularity of the Facebook groups and such, but a lot of these questions have been asked before, and people like Andrew and others answer your questions. It's a pretty good search function. I don't think it's promoted enough. I truly only promote the Message Center because it's been so helpful to me. But in addition to that, you're all over the local chapter listserv, trying to do exactly what you're talking about. Continue conversation, create conversation, answer questions. And you've been involved in the AILA San Diego chapter for a very long time, and in a lot of the ways you are AILA San Diego, and you've had so many positions. Why have you been so involved for so long? How have you done it? And how do you think that has positioned you to step into an elected national leadership position? So please answer my 6 questions in one.
Well, I will go back in time to when I first joined AILA. It was shortly after I left Federal Defenders. And I wanted to focus on immigration. So joining AILA just seemed like the thing to do. That's what everybody said. But, joining AILA isn't the same as being involved in AILA and being involved in the AILA community. So how I came to be involved is a very different story than just how I, enrolled on the website initially.
Please tell me how you enrolled. Listeners want to hear the specifics.
I probably used Mozilla at the time.
Mozilla.
So after I joined, I popped into a chapter meeting. I think back then we were doing them at Rock Bottom in La Jolla. And it was my first meeting. So I remember someone came up to me. I don't recall if she was the chair at the time, but Tammy Lynn?
Yeah.
Okay. It was Tammy. And maybe this will surprise you, but I'm a bit of an introvert at heart. So going to a group meeting where I don't know nobody is not really my comfort zone. And maybe that showed in my eyes. But so Tammy introduced herself to me, kind of looped me into what was happening. And I got to say that's really how it started. I'll also say Tammy didn't stop there. She followed up with me after the meeting, encouraged me to join some committees, which I did. And then she eventually encouraged me to join the executive committee as chapter secretary, which I did. And then a few years later, I was elected chapter chair as part of the executive committee. And so that gesture, I don't know if Tammy's going to be listening to this or not.
She better be.
She probably wouldn't mind because she comes out pretty good in this story, huh?
She does.
So the lesson for me there was that, personally inviting me to participate, that's what made me feel welcome. And it's a very important lesson that really stuck with me. And I've always had that story in my head. And when we're talking about how to make AILA national as an organization, more welcoming and more inclusive, that's the image I always have in my head. The person just personally coming up to me, personally inviting me to get involved. And I suppose what it really taught me was there's a difference between just making something accessible and making a person feel welcomed.
Yeah.
And that's so important. And that's what I've tried to carry through in my AILA national leadership positions. So I'm on my second term as an elected director on the board of governors. And so to me, I've also been part of the membership committee in the past. And for a couple of years, I was the civility ambassador. So I've always been very focused on trying to make people feel welcomed. And I always remember that story of how I got involved in AILA San Diego, that it's not enough to just, it's not enough to send out an email and say, okay, we have a meeting. Here's the link. That makes the meeting accessible. It does not make the person feel welcomed. And so I really want AILA leadership, and I think that they very often do a very good job. I think we need to continue to do this and do more of it. We need to have personal outreach to members so that they know what their opportunities to participate are, and they feel personally welcomed in those spaces, that they are invited to be there. And then once they're in those spaces, they feel they have a place in that group. And so that personal outreach is very important to me. I think that's what, as a secretary, I think that so much of that can be magnified to sort of loop people in. I'll give another example. Whenever we have a board of governors meeting, we have at least 4 a year. And you might have seen this in the chapter listserv or on some of the national listservs. I will always go to a bunch of different listservs and just let people know within AILA, throughout the organization, hey, we have a board of governors meeting coming up. Just that it's open to the entire membership. This is what the meetings are like. This is the date and the time. If you'd like to go, you're very welcome to go. If there's an issue you'd like discussed, let me know. If you'd like me to help you, present it, if you'd like me to present it for you, just very personal outreach. And I've had members that I do not know contact me and say, hey, I saw that email. I was always wondering, if I wanted to talk to the board about issue X, am I allowed to do that? I'm like, yes, you're absolutely allowed and welcome to do that. When I was chapter chair, something else that I did that I wasn't sure if it was going to go over well, but I think it did. Before every monthly meeting, we had monthly meetings back then in person, as organizations did back in the day.
Right.
And so before every monthly meeting, I, along with the other people on the executive committee, so that there would be 4 of us, each one of us, I asked every one of the people on the executive committee to go to the chapter roster, pick 5 people that they do not know and call them, and specifically invite them to the meeting. I said, do 2 things: introduce yourself, and then specifically say, hey, we have this meeting coming up in a week. Do you think you might be interested in coming? And there was some hesitation to doing that. Even I thought maybe some people are not going to appreciate these calls. But I got to say, we never got negative feedback from those calls. We got some indifference to those calls. And some people, just went to voicemail and we never heard back from them. Some people said, okay, and that was it. But we did get new members who specifically said they came because somebody called them and invited them to the meeting. And that's the sort of personal outreach that I think gets people involved. It gets people to feel like somebody wants them there and they're welcomed and they have something to say. This is how you do it. We want to hear from you.
You didn't go to law school to enter data. I know I didn't. Yet here you are. H-1B season in full swing, and your team is buried in beneficiary forms, document chasing, and data entry. That's $400 an hour in legal talent doing $20 an hour work. Staffy plugs directly into your workflow. Staffy handles the data entry, document collection, and H-1B form prep. Your team reviews it, you approve it, you bill. With the new wage-weighted selection process adding even more admin pressure this season, the firms that scale are the ones that stop doing it all themselves. Say yes to more H-1B clients without burning out your team. Visit staffy.cc or call 786-891-5619 or click on the special link in the show notes. Because you deserve a practice that grows without burning you out.
I mean, we're 18,000 people. But when you look at the number of people that actually, for instance, participate in the vote every year or, go to meetings, or, join committees, my understanding is actually it's higher than the average nonprofit. So I'm very proud of those numbers, but I think it could be even higher. And it just means that there are a lot of people that are joining AILA that perhaps don't know what resources are available to them or just feel perhaps uncomfortable making the first move. So I think that we should make the first move and say, hey, Mary, hey, Mark, you're welcome to come to this meeting, or just wanted to call in and say hello, and you got a minute to chat. That personal interaction is so crucial. And I got to say also, it is outside my comfort zone. But I was making other people do it, so I picked 5 names as well. And at the end of the year, I was really glad that we did that, and it actually helped me develop my aversion to cold calling as well. But I think it was really good for the chapter, and I think that sort of outreach would be very good for our organization as well.
Your faith is showing with your examples of Mary and Mark as the 2 individuals to call. Then Luke and John will show up as well Jesus. Tammy's great. Now an adjunct professor at USD Law.
Right.
Yeah, I've presented with her. Her and I are good friends. She's a great person. She has made known to me that she has never listened to this podcast. I have over 500,000 downloads. Tammy Lynn is not one of them. Not one! With all the case law stuff. So, while she is deserving of all this praise, I do wonder if I'll be contacted. And if you're a friend of hers, don't tell her that this happened. I want this to be organic, and I want to know. I want to know if she listened. And if she listened this long into the episode. So Tammy, balls in your court. You would have also, I imagine, bonded with Tammy over love of dogs. I know you and Bosco are quite close, and I know Tammy's she's got Millhouse is the name of her dog, if I'm not mistaken. That's right.
And another piece of coincidence / providence, Tammy and I live 3 blocks from each other.
Oh, wow.
So our dogs know each other, and we walk by each other's houses all the time.
Promoting Tammy Lynn. Before we leave AILA National, what do you think AILA's role is in this time of just absolute attack? We, first and foremost, we are a membership organization. It's American Immigration Lawyers Association, right? The issues for immigration lawyers are front and center, but there's that tension because immigration policy and how our clients are treated is very important to all of us. It's why we all get into immigration. What is AILA's role in this moment and with immigration policy generally, in your opinion?
Sure. I was very, very glad to see last year AILA form the Rule of Law Task Force in direct response to the attacks of this administration on our profession, on our attorneys, on advocates, on nonprofits, faith-based organizations. That is still being developed, but it's already done so much in identifying what the risks are to our members. I've done some trainings on this specific issue so that our members are aware of where these attacks are coming from, how this administration is forming these executive orders, what they say, how they might be used against us. But just as importantly, identifying how to respond, what the defenses are, who within our organization is a federal litigator that you can call on if this comes up and you need to consult with somebody, or if you need to have somebody represent you if it gets to that point. But also just going back to the importance of a sense of community, making sure that people don't feel like they're in this alone. Because if you feel that you're being attacked by the administration, that could be quite daunting. But if it's the administration is attacking us, that's a very different feel to it, isn't it? And so just knowing that, we're all in this together, we're developing defenses together, we're pushing back together, we're not accepting this together. I think that's a critical role of AILA. So there are very practical things like, providing that information to us and advocating, to our allies in Congress, to make sure that, we're protected and these executive orders, don't turn into legislation, or that legislation isn't, perverted in ways that inappropriately attack us and our clients. So that type of direct advocacy, our AILA staff is such a wonderful resource in that sense. But also just making sure that, we have this sense of community, and we understand that what's happening is abnormal, it's unlawful, and that together we have the resources to fight back. We have the resources to talk in the media to the public about what's wrong with what's happening. And so I think that is a critical role of AILA right now. I mean, there are ongoing things that AILA is always going to do. It's always going to be the number one bar association for immigration attorneys. It's always going to have a very strong component of advocacy with leaders in the federal government. It's always going to have a very strong media components. Our comms team within AILA is just awesome, not only in the direct work that they do in getting messages out to the media, but in training attorneys within AILA so that we can write those op-eds and we can appear in the news as the immigration experts. But beyond those ongoing things, we really need to think about what is happening right now. I mean, how much has changed just in the last year and a half to the practice of law?
120 BIA decisions in a year and a half. I mean, all of them changing the law. Should AILA be more political, and should it be advocating for changes that benefit our clients more than it is, in your opinion? Or should it be focused, as it is, mostly on the immigration attorneys?
Well, both are integral parts of the organization. So I really can't imagine AILA being one without the other. And I think that if you spoke to most AILA members, perhaps that there might be some discussion about how many resources should go to one over the other. But I think that the overwhelming majority of AILA members really value and appreciate the fact that we do both advocacy on behalf of our clients and advocacy on behalf of members, as well as the practice management stuff that is just critical to, running a business, representing clients, getting those practice advisories and having access to those listservs. So
Yeah.
I can't imagine AILA having one without the other. They're just, two lungs within the same body, really.
The annual conference is coming up, and it's in San Diego. I think we're both pretty happy about that. Although I am a bit bummed that I don't get to go to another city. I feel like when it's local, it's not quite the trip, but it's also much easier for you and I. What tips, you've been to a lot of AILA national conferences, what tips do you have for newer members going to this conference for, first, second, third time, and just in general for members to maximize the conference? Because the CLE certificates, that's just the first step. That's just the one part of it.
The annual conference is really the crown jewel of AILA, and it can be a bit overwhelming, especially for people that are going for the first time. So I really enjoy speaking to newer AILA members or members who have been here a while but have not gone to an annual conference to talk about, how to approach the annual conference, because, it lasts several days. If you look at that, day at a glance, it's pretty overwhelming, all the opportunities, and it's really hard to choose. And, one thing that I like to tell people that are going for the first or second time is it's very easy to fall into the trap of saying, well, I'm a removal practitioner, so let me look at all the removal track sessions, and those are the ones I'll go to. I'm an employment practitioner, so I'm going to go to all the employment track courses. I think that makes sense to a certain degree, but especially nowadays when I think there's a growing need to diversify our practices, whether it's because of a business decision or just to keep things interesting, look at some of the sessions for things that you don't do, either because they might be interesting to you. You always wondered what that type of visa was about, or you always thought, hey, this seems like it might be something that would be an area of immigration law that I could expand into. And so identify those and go to those fundamental sessions and let your AILA annual conference experience be this combination of, reinforcing and improving the practice that you have, learning new areas, and also even beyond the panels, look at some of the other activities. And I don't mean, just all the parties, even though those are awesome. Look at some of the gatherings of the interest groups. There's a crimmigration interest group. There's, an interest group for, every interest group that exists. Most of them will have meetings at the annual conference. The people that you are seeing their names pop up on the listservs, you have an opportunity to go and hang out with them and talk about things. And you can help develop the agenda for that 1 hour session. And it's going to be beyond that 1 hour experience. You are going to create relationships with colleagues that you're going to take back to your offices. And that's going to be invaluable. And so don't think of the AILA conference as just an opportunity to get the MCLE that you need and just to reinforce the type of practice that you have. Look at all the other things to complement that.
As a self-described pseudo-introvert, how do you recommend that people network in a way that's not awkward and that actually works?
Yeah, that's a great question. I guarantee you that the majority of people that you see at annual conference are looking back at you and you're both thinking, oh, I hope he comes over and says hello. She's from Tulsa. That's really cool. Hope she looks my way. Everybody is looking for the other person to be the first to say hello. Just say hello. Just if you're sitting next to somebody, the easiest leading question is, oh, where are you here from? And if they want to engage, all they need is that lead-in question, and then you can just take it from there. So don't be afraid to start a conversation. Everybody there, part of why they're there is to interact with people. But I think that it's human nature to sometimes assume that other people don't want to be bothered. But everybody there wants to be bothered. That's why they're there. They want to interact. They want to chat with people from cities that they always thought were interesting, or they never knew somebody from there before. So my advice is just be the first to say something and make it as simple as, hey, where are you here from? Or, oh, did you, if it's at the end of a session, hey, that was pretty cool. What'd you think? Just something as simple as that. And I guarantee you that 99 out of 100 people will take that as an opportunity to engage.
Can I suggest maybe you go to your neighbor and, quite frankly, as many people as you can find at the conference and say, hey, do you listen to the Immigration Review podcast? So it's just an amazing intro line. You'd have so much to talk about. So that's my 2 cents to answer my question.
Absolutely. And given your follower base, I'm sure that's a good shot. They're going to say, oh, yeah, I listened to him.
That's right. Well, you have to, I haven't published this episode yet, so you have to say that because, it's...
You're asking, you mentioned the volunteers. I don't know if you knew this, but it's kind of a coincidence. Do you know where I was this morning?
I don't.
I was actually in federal court. Maybe some of the people that are listening aren't aware of what happened here in San Diego about a month ago, but we have a group of volunteers, different organizations. Some of them are faith-based, some are not. I think that the 2 biggest, one is called Faith. I think that's the one that was formed by Bishop Pham, but it's several different faith communities that have joined together. Another one is Detention Resistance, but they go to our federal building and they go to immigration court to observe, and they go to the ICE check-in and they just give people directions. They help people fill out forms. They chat with people. Some of the faith-based ones will say little prayers for people outside the building if they ask for that. But there's a wonderful group of volunteers, all different ages, retired, ex-military, just people within the community.
It's been very powerful, and it's very powerful. It's affected things, and I think it should be happening in every city. It's just so commendable.
I give you heartwarming stories of me sitting in the waiting room and just listening to conversations between the volunteers and just the random respondent who's there by himself or herself. And you could just tell they were so relieved to have somebody to talk to. I almost feel like I'm about to get choked up thinking about a particular story. I'm not going to go into that. So getting back to where I was this morning, Kevin, about a month ago, a bunch of them got citations. So that the federal police that are within that building started giving out loitering citations to these volunteers who are in public spaces, offering directions and prayers and conversations to these people, and fined them. And so a bunch of them had their first appearance in federal court this morning because it's federal property. So they had to go to, it's called a CVP court. And so I just went over there and offered to represent them. So I've been doing this pro bono. And so that's where I was this morning, just representing some of these individuals that were I actually went over to represent one that I had just gotten connected with. But when I got there were 4 others. I just kind of was chatting with them, confirmed there was no conflict, and they wanted me to help them out. So I just represented all 5 of them. They're all insistent that they did nothing wrong. And so, I've never been in that particular courtroom before, but, it's part immigration world, which I'm comfortable with. It's part federal litigation, which I'm comfortable with. It's a whole lot of, First Amendment stuff, which I'm certainly interested in, and some righteous indignation, which I'm all about. And so I'm continuing to represent them. And there might be some more coming in a couple of weeks. But I reached out to other attorneys in the community, and I just have a list of attorneys. Some of them are AILA attorneys. Some of them are CGA attorneys on the criminal defense side that said, oh, you're doing that? I'd love to do that. And it's really started to create this feeling within the attorney community here of we have an opportunity to kind of give back to these volunteers who have been so helpful and selfless with our clients. And so that's where I spent my morning in court representing these volunteers, which I was very happy to do.
That's wonderful. I can't think of someone better to be doing that. I'm really thankful and grateful that you're doing that. And as you talk about the First Amendment stuff, I really think that if it gets to it, or even before, we should loop in Eric Isaacson, who is an appellate First Amendment attorney in San Diego and is on the board of the American Constitution Society with me. He is all about the First Amendment. If this becomes constitutional, I'm sure that Eric would like to get involved and have a lot to provide on the constitutional questions.
Absolutely. That would be a great idea. Yeah, a lot of just great seasoned attorneys, and also just a lot of like new attorneys that are just very interested in these issues that have been reaching out. So it's been a really nice experience seeing what it's doing to various communities within San Diego.
Before we go, you provided me your resume as I've asked guests to do over the last couple months, and it is for this reason. I saw at the end of your resume that you are learning Thai. Why are you learning? Nothing against the Thai people, they're lovely people. Why are you learning Thai, Andrew Nietor?
I forgot I had that on there. So this goes back to the pandemic, actually. You know how everybody was just home? I basically watched every movie there was to watch on Netflix, and I decided I just need to do something more productive with my time. So I decided that I wanted to learn one instrument and learn one language. So I started taking some just on YouTube guitar lessons. I already knew some like basic stuff, but I wanted to learn like Spanish guitar. So I started doing that. And then for a language, I already speak Spanish. I thought I'd like to learn a language that is not like Spanish, not a Romance language, maybe even not a language that I'm going to particularly use very much. I wanted to focus on like a tonal language, like many of the Asian languages are, just because it's so different. And as I was watching all those Netflix movies, I started watching movies in different languages just out of curiosity. And I was surprised at how well developed, this might seem random, but the Thai film industry seems quite developed. And I just found myself watching a lot of those movies, so many that every now and then I would like understand what they were saying because, just the basic greetings. So I thought, I also like Thai food. I eat Thai food at least twice a week.
There we go.
And by the way, I have gotten at least a dozen free Thai iced teas just because I can order my food in Thai. But my Thai is really basic. I could do greetings. I could do ordering my food now. I still have my book that I'm kind of trying to pick up. And I'd love to go to Thailand. It's number one on my list right now. I'm not ready to, speak freely on the streets, but maybe by the time I make my plans, I'll be able to carry on a conversation. Really, the only downside I would say is that it's great that when I walk into a Thai restaurant, I can speak the basics, and it always entertains and amuses the people there, and they clearly appreciate it. But I've learned that I now need to specifically say that I don't want my food spicy because otherwise they just assume I want my food very spicy.
Right, because Thai, yeah.
Right. So I do know how to say, not spicy food or not spicy or like a certain level. That's become an integral part of my vocabulary when I order food.
Well, Andrew, I think you've got the AILA Thai vote, so that you've got that section on lock. It's been a pleasure speaking with you this evening in San Diego. I'd like to give you the last word before we conclude.
Well, I would just encourage members to participate in the election. Like I said, my understanding is that we have a pretty good, compared to other organizations, a pretty good number of people that vote, but it's still pretty low. And especially now, I'm sure many people know that we now have regions within AILA. So AILA has been divided into regions, and for the first time, all members will be voting for a director from their region to represent them on the board. I would hope that provides sort of an added incentive because that's going to be somebody that is going to represent you on the board specifically for your area. So it's not some, at-large elected director that's also, technically representing the other, 18,000 people within the organization. This is going to be somebody representing you in your geographic region. And so that person can really carry your needs to AILA National, to governance and to leadership. So please participate. I obviously would love to have people vote for me as AILA secretary. I'm hoping that this provided an opportunity for people to learn a little bit more about me, my background, and what I'd like to bring to the secretary position. And if anybody has questions or would like to engage me, I am always very open to talking about I'm such an AILA nerd. I'm always looking to talk about AILA stuff with folks.
Pleasure to have you on the show, Andrew. Can't wait to hang out with you at the national conference, and beforehand, thank you for everything you do, and thank you for coming on the show.
Thank you, Kevin. Pleasure to speak with you today.
So there you have it. I'm Kevin A. Gregg, a partner with the law firm Kurzban, Tetzeli, and Pratt, and this has been another episode of Immigration Review. Thank you for listening, and I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please share it with a friend and rate and review us. Each review helps new listeners find the show. And of course, subscribe to Immigration Review wherever you get your podcasts. If you like what we do and want to become a patron of the show, please check out our Patreon page at www.patreon.com/Immigration Review or click on the link in the show notes. And if you're interested in an official Immigration Review CLE certificate, email me at kgreg@kktplaw.com with your full name and the episode numbers for the 10 shows you've listened to. Also, feel free to email me with questions, comments, or anything at all, and follow the show on Instagram and Facebook at Immigration Review, or send us a tweet at ImReview. That's IMM Review. And we're always interested in hearing listener feedback. Like this review about the episode you just listened to from my very young son. Son, how did you like that episode? Indeed. If you, like my son, enjoyed what you just heard, again, please give the Patreon page some love, feel free to review the pod, reach out to me with your own kind sounds, or do anything else nice that your heart desires. I'll be back next week for a brand new discussion. Until then, I'm Kevin A. Gregg, bringing you the Immigration Review.